Okay, welcome back to another Voices of Change. It's absolutely my pleasure to be joined by Andrew Fuller. Andrew, as most of you would know, is a clinical psychologist, family therapist, author, speaker, and creator of Learning Strengths. His work has brought together more than 5,000 communities, reaching more than 500,000 of our young people to help them identify with the concept of a resilient mindset. Andrew, welcome to Voices of Change.
Michael, it's great to be with you, and hi everyone who's listening.
Andrew, let's dive in just a little bit more about your background and sort of how that's evolved to bring you to this part of your career.
Thank you. I started out my career really in crisis teams. So I was on bridges and in siege situations with people who were having really difficult times. And I got to tell you, I had no idea what I was doing, really. My training had not prepared me at all for what I was doing. And so, of course, I was really scared. And so I just sort of started to talk to these people in some of the gloomiest moments in their lives. And what I learned from them was enormous. I mean, they taught me really how to help them. And what I really learned from them was that they weren't mentally ill in the formalized sense of it. Many of them had just had relationship stuff that they had no idea how to figure out. And they thought, oh, well, the best way to solve this is for me no longer to be on the planet. And I got in, well, I mean, obviously I sort of learned from them that how do you stop people getting to that point was the kind of question I came up with. And then, partly an original one, but that's what I came up with. And that then led me to start researching something which, and I promise you, Michael, this is true, I'm not making it up. This was a concept that nobody had ever really much heard of. It was called resilience. I know that's hard to believe, isn't it, these days, because it's so prolific. But in those days, well, I'd talk about resilience and people talk about steel and tension and bridges rather than emotions. Emmy Werner had done a bit of stuff. Bonnie Bernard was doing a bit of stuff in California. Emmy was in Hawaii, but really nobody else was doing much of this kind of stuff. So that's what we did. And that really then has become the driving force, really, of pretty much anything I've ever done since then, is how to help people get to that point.
It's interesting, and you very apt comment about resilience being used as a word now. Yeah. So we're here today, Andrew, and the future, as we know, is in front of us. What's your sort of thoughts about the future of education in this space, and maybe what role do we as leaders play?
I think we have to come to a really firm understanding that what worked in 2019 no longer works. That we are dealing now with a very different generation of young people who communicate in different ways, have different value sets, and are motivated by different things. And if we are content to roll out the sorts of things that we were doing but 2019 and beyond, we are destined to failure. So we live in a fascinating world, and on the one hand, the world is full of deplorable atrocities that we both, we both, I'm sure, really detest. But on the other hand, there's all of these wonderful innovations and devices and breakthroughs. And so never before, I can't think of a time when the world is so split between the dreadful and the possible. And you've almost got to be very mindful then to position yourself. I mean, we don't want to obviously turn away from the dreadful because we need to be aware of it. But if we just use that and ignore what's possible, then we do everybody a disservice. And I think one of the risks in education is a scurrying back to the past rather than embracing the future. And that's a great concern to me.
Andrew, very, very interesting. And so, with that in mind, what's some advice and what's some of your experiences about supporting schools, supporting leaders in schools around the mental health of both students and the adults, the teachers, and the environment?
Well, one of the common themes that's been talked about is usually the culprit of the latest innovations in technology, which have really throughout history, if you look at it, have always been blamed for the evils of young people. So there's nothing new here,
Right.
Probably Gutenberg was given a hard time about,
Right.
putting out the printing press. I don't know.
Oh,
There was so
sure.
it's been going on for a long time. This kind of blame game, right? But we've got to think, okay, well, if let's for the sake of it just say, well, there's some credence to that, and people are more distractible and they're kind of more, flighty in terms of their thinking and more socially anxious. And I think there's good data to say that. What's the antidote? Well, the antidote is actually not particularly complex. Kids like hanging around with other kids in a fairly unsupervised, free kind of wheeling kind of way. They like to be part of a community. They like to be with other young people having fun. Surprise, surprise, right? And so if we can then create in our schools a sense of community, which is fun, which is enjoyable, which is personal, which is relatable, where people, as I've talked about in other settings, where they connect with one another, where they feel safe with one another, protect with one another, and when they respect one another, the CPR of well-being, connect, protect, and respect, then people thrive. So while the problem is big, the solutions are to some extent really pretty straightforward. How to create that culture in a school. And the mistake that was often made, I think, kids came back from the lockdown years and everyone kind of thought, right, we better, fill their heads with a whole lot of skills and stuff that we've kind of missed, and they kind of forgot the community part of it. And then they're wondering why some kids don't want to go to school at all, or there's all that stuff going on. And so important now that we really rectify that and build and strengthen school culture and school community.
Yeah, very important. I totally agree, Andrew. What's your latest thinking? What's the latest research? What's your latest thoughts around neuroscience and neuroadvantage? I know you're pretty much at the forefront of this.
So the lockdown years were a really interesting time for all of us, but in terms of research, they were great. And the reason was that everyone had the time to kind of down tools and complete all the projects they'd been doing, which was kind of cool. And so what we saw, as often again in history, when there are times of adversity and difficulty, often research surges ahead. And what happened in neuroscience was a shift from being dominated by where in the brain do particular functions reside, to how does the brain communicate in itself? How does it process information? Then strengthen interest in myelination, the white brain material that wraps itself around the axons of the neurons of your brain, essentially supercharges the speed of thinking. At about 60% of brains are myelinated, 40% is not. And the pattern in one brain is different than another. And so, which sort of tells you something that you've already known for all of your life, that you're good at some things other people aren't much good at, and they're good at some things you're not much good at, because we have different brains. And so that then allowed us to think about learning strengths. And then I became really, intrigued by the growth of neurodiversities. And I became also intrigued with the propensity of the world to label these neurodiversities as disorders. But perplexingly, for me at least, the tribe that you originated from, Michael, and I originated from originally, survived, and we know they survived because you're here and I'm here, basically, and we wouldn't be if they didn't, survived not because they had one type of person, but because they had people who were really interested in patterns. They had other people who were really gung-ho to go and have that group over there and go, "G'day, good to meet you," but be smart enough to rack off if they threatened to kill you. So we had all these weird kind of wacky ancestors who were really quite wonderful people that we actually owe a great debt of survival to, and yet today we call their kind of brain wiring a disorder. And so we are now at the beautiful stage where we can kind of go, okay, we now need to change our thinking. This isn't neurodeficit, this is neuroadvantage. How do we understand how that particular kid with whatever label they've got has their brain wired, and how do we then curate learning for them so they create great outcomes for themselves. Really exciting revolution, I think.
Fascinating, fascinating. And Andrew, again, really appreciate your time today. If we're just going to wrap up with like a leadership gem or a thought or a piece of advice that you give to leaders in any context, but maybe in schools today.
Leadership is a role, not a rank. So that,
Love it.
yeah.
I love it. Andrew, thank you very much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to share this time with you. And thank you again, and all the best for your work moving forward. It's important.
And to you, Michael, thank you so much. It's an honour to speak with you.